Imagine standing at the crossroads of a decision, feeling the familiar tug of temptation. Whether it's procrastinating on a crucial task, indulging in unhealthy habits, or reacting impulsively to a frustrating situation, these moments often feel overwhelming. Yet the key to mastering them lies in one simple, powerful practice: active self-awareness. The Stoics believed that true freedom begins with self-mastery, and self-mastery is impossible without a deep understanding of oneself. Epictetus famously said, "No man is free if he is not master of himself." This idea underscores that freedom isn't found in external circumstances, but in the ability to control our internal world, our thoughts, emotions, and actions. But self-awareness, in the Stoic sense, isn't passive. It requires actively observing yourself in real time, identifying patterns, and understanding the forces at play in your decisions. Think about a vice you wish to overcome. Perhaps it's procrastination. At first glance, procrastination might seem like simple laziness, but if you look closer, there's often more to uncover. Ask yourself, why do I avoid this task? Is it because it feels overwhelming? Do I fear failing at it? Or is the task itself unclear, leaving me unsure of where to start? Each of these reasons points to a different root cause, and by understanding it, you can address it effectively. For example, if overwhelm is the issue, breaking the task into smaller, more manageable steps can make it feel achievable. If fear of failure is the culprit, reminding yourself that action, even imperfect action, is better than inaction can help you push through the resistance. Self-awareness, then, transforms procrastination from a vague, frustrating habit into a problem you can analyze and solve. One practical tool for developing this awareness is journaling. By writing down your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors each day, you create a record of your internal world. Let's say you're trying to quit smoking. Journaling might reveal that your cravings are strongest after stressful meetings or during idle moments in your routine. This insight allows you to prepare for those triggers, whether by practicing stress management techniques or finding healthier ways to occupy your time. Another layer of self-awareness involves examining not just the triggers, but the needs underlying your actions. Consider a habit like binge eating. While the immediate trigger might be stress or boredom, the deeper question is, what are you trying to fill with food? Is it a need for comfort, distraction, or even control? When you identify these deeper needs, you can address them directly, reducing the power of the habit over time. Active self-awareness also requires compassion. It's easy to fall into self-criticism when you recognize your flaws or weaknesses, but the Stoics encourage a different approach. Imagine you're watching a friend struggle with the same challenges. You'd likely offer understanding and support, helping them see their situation with clarity rather than judgment. Apply the same kindness to yourself. Awareness is not about berating yourself for your impulses, but about learning from them and making better choices moving forward. In practice, this might look like pausing when you notice an urge arise. Let's say you're about to reach for your phone during a moment of boredom. Instead of reacting automatically, stop and observe the impulse. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Why do I want to check my phone? Often, simply bringing awareness to the urge weakens its power, giving you the space to choose a different action. The Stoics also taught that self-awareness is not a one-time effort, but a lifelong practice. Each day brings new challenges, new emotions, and new opportunities to learn about yourself. Over time, this practice sharpens your ability to recognize patterns and make conscious choices, building a foundation for lasting change. By cultivating active self-awareness, you take the first and most essential step toward mastering your vices. It's not a quick fix, but it's a powerful tool that grows stronger with use. The more you practice observing yourself with honesty and compassion, the more control you gain over your actions, and the closer you come to the freedom Epictetus described. Once you've developed self-awareness, the next step is learning how to apply balance in your actions and desires. The Stoics called this temperance, the ability to moderate your impulses and avoid extremes. It's about finding the middle ground where you can enjoy life's pleasures without becoming controlled by them. Seneca offered profound wisdom on this when he said, "Happiness is actually wanting what you have." This simple idea reminds us that true contentment comes not from chasing more, but from appreciating what's already within our reach. Temperance teaches us to approach our desires with care, ensuring that they enhance our lives rather than dominate them. Think about how this principle applies to a habit like overeating. The temptation to indulge often stems from a combination of physical cravings and emotional triggers. In the moment, it can feel satisfying to eat beyond fullness, but that satisfaction is fleeting. Soon after, it's replaced by discomfort, regret, or guilt. Temperance invites you to shift your perspective, focusing not on restriction but on balance. Instead of vowing never to eat sweets again, an extreme approach likely to backfire, you might choose to enjoy them in smaller portions or less frequently. By practicing moderation, you not only regain control but also rediscover the pleasure of savoring food without excess. Temperance doesn't just apply to physical habits. It's equally relevant to emotional responses. Consider a scenario where you feel anger rising during a disagreement. Without temperance, that anger might drive you to lash out or say something hurtful, actions you may later regret. Practicing temperance means allowing yourself to feel the emotion without letting it take over. You might think, "I'm angry, and that's okay. But I don't have to act on it impulsively." This moment of restraint can prevent unnecessary conflict and help you respond more thoughtfully. How do you develop temperance? Start by recognizing your limits. Imagine a person who enjoys drinking alcohol socially, but sometimes overindulges. Instead of attempting to quit entirely, a decision that may feel daunting, they might decide to limit themselves to 1 or 2 drinks per occasion. This gradual approach builds discipline over time, while avoiding the frustration that often comes with rigid restrictions. Another strategy is to set clear boundaries for yourself. For example, if you tend to lose track of time on your phone, you could establish a rule: no screens during meals or in the hour before bed. By defining these boundaries, you create structure that helps you maintain balance. Practicing temperance also means learning how to say no when necessary. Many of our habits are reinforced by social pressures or the fear of disappointing others. If you struggle with overeating at family gatherings or drinking excessively with friends, temperance teaches you that it's okay to decline. Saying no isn't about depriving yourself or others. It's about honoring your own well-being. For the Stoics, temperance was more than just a tool for managing habits. It was a path to freedom. When you practice moderation, you free yourself from the highs and lows that come with excess. You no longer need to chase fleeting pleasures or recover from their consequences. Instead, you find stability in the present, appreciating life's simple joys without being overwhelmed by them. One way to deepen your practice of temperance is by reflecting on your values. Ask yourself, what matters most to me? How do my habits align or fail to align with those values? For instance, if you value health and vitality, does overeating or skipping exercise support that vision of yourself? When you connect your actions to your larger goals, it becomes easier to make choices that reflect your priorities. Another helpful approach is to anticipate challenges. Imagine an upcoming situation where you might feel tempted to act against your better judgment. Perhaps it's a party where food and drinks will be abundant. Before the event, take a moment to plan how you'll approach it. You might decide in advance to enjoy one small plate of food or stick to water after your first drink. By setting these intentions, you prepare yourself to act with balance rather than being swept up in the moment. Temperance is not about being rigid or denying yourself pleasure. It's about enjoying life responsibly and sustainably. As you cultivate this skill, you'll likely notice a shift in how you experience pleasure. The things you once consumed thoughtlessly may now bring you greater enjoyment because you're approaching them with mindfulness and control. Seneca's words remind us that contentment is already within our grasp. When we practice temperance, we learn to see the abundance in what we have, rather than yearning for more. This perspective brings a sense of peace that no external thing can provide, freeing us from the cycles of craving and regret that often accompany indulgence. In moments of stress or temptation, when emotions run high and impulses feel overwhelming, it can be hard to think clearly. This is where the Stoic practice of mental retreat becomes invaluable. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, famously wrote, "Tranquility comes from within yourself." This profound insight reminds us that no matter how chaotic the world around us may seem, we have the ability to find calm within. The idea of a mental retreat is simple but powerful. It involves creating a space in your mind where you can pause, step back, and regain clarity when faced with external pressures or internal urges. This practice doesn't mean escaping from reality or avoiding your responsibilities. Instead, it's about finding a moment of stillness that allows you to reconnect with your values and respond thoughtfully, rather than react impulsively. Imagine a scenario where you're feeling overwhelmed by the demands of a busy day. Deadlines are looming, messages are piling up, and your mind feels scattered. In this state, it's easy to fall into unhealthy coping mechanisms, perhaps reaching for junk food, scrolling through social media for distraction, or snapping at someone close to you. But what if, instead of giving in to these impulses, you took a moment to retreat mentally? Close your eyes, breathe deeply. Picture a place that brings you peace. It could be a quiet forest, a serene beach, or even a simple room filled with calm. As you visualize this space, let the noise of the outside world fade away. Focus on the stillness within. This practice, though seemingly small, can have a profound effect on your ability to handle stress and resist temptation. By stepping into this mental retreat, even for just a few moments, you create the distance needed to observe your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You remind yourself that you have the power to choose your response. Marcus Aurelius himself likely used this technique often. As emperor, he faced immense pressure daily, making decisions that affected the lives of millions, navigating political conflicts, and managing the constant threat of war. Yet, through his writings, we see a man who remained grounded and reflective. He found strength not in external validation, but in the tranquility he cultivated within his own mind. For us, the practice of mental retreat is just as relevant. It's a way to break free from the immediacy of our impulses and reconnect with what truly matters. Let's say you're feeling the urge to overspend during a shopping trip. Instead of acting on that impulse, pause. Step into your mental retreat and ask yourself, do I really need this? What am I trying to achieve by buying it? Often, the act of pausing is enough to weaken the grip of the temptation. How can you cultivate this practice? Start by identifying a mental image that brings you peace. It could be a place from your memories or an imagined setting that represents calm and stillness. When you feel overwhelmed, take a few deep breaths and visualize yourself entering this space. With time and repetition, this retreat becomes easier to access and more effective at grounding you in moments of need. Another way to strengthen this practice is to pair it with physical techniques. Deep breathing, for example, can help calm your nervous system and enhance the sense of stillness in your mental retreat. You might also try progressive muscle relaxation, where you tense and release different parts of your body to release built-up tension. It's important to remember that a mental retreat is not about avoiding your challenges. Instead, it's about creating the mental clarity needed to face them effectively. Think of it as pressing the pause button on a chaotic scene so that you can step back, assess the situation, and return with a clear mind. This brief moment of stillness can make all the difference in how you handle difficult circumstances. Let's explore how this might work in a high-pressure situation. Imagine you're in a heated argument, and you feel your frustration building. Without a mental retreat, you might respond defensively or say something hurtful in the heat of the moment. But by stepping into your mental retreat, taking a few breaths and visualizing your place of calm, you create the space to choose a more measured response. You might decide to listen more actively or to step away from the conversation until you feel ready to re-engage calmly. This practice is also helpful for dealing with long-term challenges. Suppose you're working on breaking a deeply ingrained habit, like smoking or emotional eating. The temptation to revert to old patterns can be strong, especially during stressful periods. A mental retreat can serve as a refuge during these moments, giving you the strength to resist the urge and stay committed to your goals. Over time, the habit of retreating mentally becomes a form of resilience. You develop the ability to find calm within yourself, no matter the external circumstances. This inner stillness not only helps you resist vices, but also enhances your overall well-being, allowing you to navigate life's ups and downs with greater ease. To make this practice even more effective, consider pairing it with reflection. After using a mental retreat to regain clarity, take a moment to reflect on what triggered your emotions or impulses. This added step deepens your understanding of yourself and strengthens your ability to handle similar situations in the future. As Marcus Aurelius reminded us, tranquility comes from within. By cultivating a mental retreat, you create a powerful tool for managing stress, resisting temptation, and reconnecting with your values. It's a practice that grows stronger with time and serves as a constant reminder that peace is always within your reach. Overcoming vices requires more than fleeting motivation. It demands a steady and persistent will. Willpower is often misunderstood as an all-or-nothing battle against temptation, but the Stoics approached it differently. They saw it as a daily commitment to growth, built through small, consistent actions. Epictetus captured this beautifully when he said, "Do not give in to vice, but do not punish yourself for setbacks." This advice emphasizes the importance of perseverance without harsh self-criticism. Consider the journey of someone trying to reduce their time on social media. It's easy to feel motivated at the start, perhaps inspired by the idea of reclaiming lost hours or improving mental clarity. But what happens when the novelty wears off, or when a stressful day makes mindless scrolling seem irresistible? This is where steady willpower becomes essential. The quiet, consistent effort to stay on course, even when the initial excitement fades. The Stoics understood that willpower isn't about grand, heroic gestures. It's about the small, deliberate choices we make every day. Imagine a ship navigating a vast ocean. It doesn't reach its destination in one sweeping movement. Instead, it adjusts its course constantly, responding to the winds and currents. Similarly, cultivating willpower is about making those small corrective adjustments that keep you aligned with your goals. To build steady willpower, start by setting manageable goals. Let's say you want to reduce your reliance on caffeine. Instead of quitting cold turkey, a drastic change that may lead to withdrawal symptoms and frustration, begin by gradually cutting back. If you usually drink 3 cups of coffee a day, try reducing it to 2 for a week, then 1. Each small victory reinforces your belief in your ability to make changes, creating a positive cycle of success. It's also important to recognize that setbacks are part of the process. The Stoics didn't expect perfection from themselves or others. They understood that mistakes are inevitable and that the true measure of willpower is how you respond to those mistakes. Suppose you're trying to quit smoking and have gone several days without a cigarette, but then you slip and have one. Instead of seeing this as a failure and giving up entirely, use it as an opportunity to learn. Reflect on what led to the lapse. Was it stress, boredom, or social pressure? By identifying the trigger, you can prepare for similar situations in the future. Another way to strengthen willpower is through visualization. Picture yourself successfully resisting a temptation or achieving a goal. For instance, if you're trying to limit your sugar intake, imagine yourself choosing a healthy snack instead of a sugary treat. Visualizing these scenarios helps reinforce the behavior you want to adopt, making it easier to follow through when the moment arises. The Stoics also emphasize the importance of daily renewal. Just as a muscle grows stronger with regular exercise, willpower is built through consistent practice. Start each day by setting an intention, something small and specific that aligns with your larger goals. For example, you might decide, today I'll take a 5-minute walk instead of reaching for my phone during breaks. These daily intentions serve as building blocks for lasting change. Accountability can also play a significant role in maintaining steady willpower. Share your goals with someone you trust, a friend, family member, or mentor, who can support and encourage you. Knowing that someone else is aware of your efforts adds an extra layer of motivation to stay committed. It's worth noting that willpower is not an unlimited resource. The Stoics acknowledged that energy and focus can wane throughout the day, making it harder to resist temptations later on. This is why they stress the importance of preparation and prioritization. If you know that your resolve weakens in the evening, plan your most challenging tasks or decisions for earlier in the day. For example, if you're trying to cook healthy meals instead of ordering takeout, prep your ingredients in the morning so that the effort required in the evening is minimal. A practical way to support willpower is by creating an environment that reduces temptation. If you're working on spending less time online, consider removing social media apps from your phone or setting time limits. By designing your environment to align with your goals, you reduce the need to rely solely on willpower. As you cultivate steady willpower, remember to celebrate progress, no matter how small. Each time you make a choice that aligns with your values, you're reinforcing the habit of self-discipline. Over time, these small victories add up, transforming your relationship with vices and strengthening your confidence in your ability to change. The Stoics remind us that the journey towards self-mastery is not about achieving perfection, but about showing up each day with intention and effort. As Epictetus advised, do not punish yourself for setbacks. Instead, view them as part of the process, a chance to learn, adjust, and grow stronger. With steady willpower, you can navigate the challenges of life with greater resilience, knowing that each small step brings you closer to your goals. One of the most distinctive tools in the Stoic arsenal is the practice of negative visualization. At first, this concept might sound counterintuitive. Why would anyone want to imagine worst-case scenarios or focus on potential challenges? However, the Stoics believed that visualizing possible setbacks or consequences serves a practical purpose. It strengthens your resilience, clarifies your priorities, and helps you make wiser choices in the present. Seneca wrote, "Man suffers more in imagination than in reality." While this statement acknowledges the human tendency to worry unnecessarily, it also points to the power of imagination when used constructively. Negative visualization is not about dwelling on fear or catastrophizing, but about preparing yourself mentally and emotionally for life's inevitable challenges. Let's consider how this practice applies to overcoming vices. Imagine someone who struggles with impulsive spending. They might enjoy the thrill of buying something new, but over time, this habit leads to financial stress, mounting debt, and feelings of regret. By using negative visualization, they could take a moment to imagine what might happen if this pattern continues unchecked. What would their life look like with unpaid bills piling up? How might financial strain affect their relationships or their ability to pursue long-term goals? Visualizing these consequences isn't meant to instill fear. It's meant to highlight the stakes, offering a clear motivation to change course. This practice is equally valuable for addressing other habits. Consider someone working to break free from procrastination. They might visualize the stress of rushing to meet a deadline, the embarrassment of submitting incomplete work, or the missed opportunities that come from not giving their best effort. By bringing these potential outcomes into focus, they gain a deeper understanding of why procrastination harms them, making it easier to resist the urge to delay. Negative visualization can also help you navigate the fear of change. Many people cling to unhealthy habits because the idea of letting them go feels daunting. For example, someone trying to quit smoking might worry about how they'll handle stress without cigarettes. By using negative visualization, they can confront the reality of continuing to smoke, potential health issues, the financial cost, or the impact on their loved ones. This process shifts the focus from what they fear losing to what they stand to gain by making a change. How can you incorporate this practice into your daily life? Start by identifying a specific habit or challenge you're working on. Take a few minutes to reflect on the long-term consequences of not addressing it. Be honest and detailed in your visualization. For example, if you're trying to cut back on unhealthy eating, imagine how your body might feel in the future if the habit persists. Low energy, health complications, or reduced confidence. Then, contrast this with the positive outcomes of making a healthier choice. This dual perspective not only reinforces the value of change, but also reminds you that your actions today shape your future. Negative visualization isn't just about avoiding harm. it's also about appreciating what you have. By imagining life without certain comforts or freedoms, you develop a deeper sense of gratitude for them. For instance, imagine losing access to something you currently take for granted, like your health, your home, or your relationships. This exercise can shift your perspective, helping you see the abundance in your life and motivating you to make choices that protect and preserve what matters most. Another benefit of negative visualization is that it reduces the element of surprise when challenges arise. Life is unpredictable and setbacks are inevitable. By imagining potential difficulties in advance, you prepare yourself mentally and emotionally, making it easier to respond with grace when they occur. This doesn't mean you'll never feel disappointment or frustration, but it does mean you'll be less likely to feel overwhelmed or caught off guard. Let's revisit the example of someone working to manage impulsive spending. They might visualize not just the long-term consequences, but also the short-term challenges of breaking the habit. Perhaps they anticipate feeling a sense of deprivation or frustration when they resist the urge to make an unnecessary purchase. By acknowledging these feelings in advance, they can remind themselves that they're temporary and that the discomfort is worth enduring for the sake of their larger goals. To deepen this practice, consider pairing negative visualization with journaling. Write down the potential outcomes you're visualizing, both positive and negative. For instance, if you're trying to reduce procrastination, you might journal about the stress you feel when deadlines approach, contrasted with the satisfaction of completing tasks on time. Reflecting on these scenarios in writing helps solidify your intentions and keeps your motivations clear. It's important to approach negative visualization with balance. The goal is not to spiral into worry or despair, but to use your imagination as a tool for clarity and preparation. After visualizing potential challenges, take a moment to remind yourself of your strengths and resources. For example, if you're visualizing the challenges of quitting a bad habit, remind yourself of the support systems, strategies, and tools you have at your disposal. Seneca's insight about imagination is a reminder that our minds are powerful. We can use them to create unnecessary suffering by fixating on fears, or we can use them to prepare ourselves for life's uncertainties and make intentional choices. When practiced thoughtfully, negative visualization becomes a form of mental training, helping you build resilience and stay aligned with your values. By incorporating this practice into your life, you gain a deeper appreciation for what you have, a clearer understanding of the consequences of your actions, and a greater ability to face challenges with confidence. It's a reminder that while life may be unpredictable, you have the power to shape your responses and ultimately your future. Among the most practical and empowering Stoic strategies is the practice of voluntary deprivation. This method involves intentionally giving up comforts or pleasures for a set period, not as a form of punishment, but as a way to strengthen your self-discipline and deepen your appreciation for what you have. The Stoics understood that freedom is not about indulging in every desire, but about realizing how little we actually need to feel content. Epictetus put it succinctly: freedom is not having or doing what one wants, but not needing what one does not have. This insight speaks to the heart of voluntary deprivation. It's about reclaiming control over your desires and reminding yourself that your happiness doesn't depend on external things. Consider how this practice might look in everyday life. Imagine someone who often turns to sugary snacks for comfort during stressful moments. The immediate gratification of the sugar rush feels soothing, but over time, this habit may lead to health issues, guilt, or dependence on food for emotional regulation. By practicing voluntary deprivation, they might decide to go a week without any sugary treats. At first, the absence of their usual comfort might feel challenging, but this temporary discomfort serves a purpose. It reveals the strength they possess to endure without the thing they thought they needed. Voluntary deprivation also helps shift your perspective. When you temporarily give up something you enjoy, you learn to appreciate it more when you reintroduce it. That same person who abstained from sugary snacks might find that when they do enjoy a treat again, it feels more special and satisfying because it's no longer consumed mindlessly. This practice isn't limited to food or physical pleasures. It can apply to any area of life where you feel dependent on external comforts. For example, If you find yourself spending hours on social media each day, consider taking a digital detox for a weekend or a week. During this time, you might initially feel restless or disconnected, but you may also discover how much more time and mental energy you have for other activities. The absence of constant scrolling can create space for deeper conversations, hobbies, or moments of quiet reflection. Voluntary deprivation is a powerful tool for combating vices because it helps you build resilience. By choosing to give up something voluntarily, you train yourself to endure discomfort and delay gratification. This practice strengthens your ability to resist temptation in other areas of life as well. For instance, someone who successfully abstains from social media for a week might find it easier to resist other distractions, like impulse purchases or unnecessary snacking, because they've already proven to themselves that they can live without certain comforts. This method also fosters a sense of gratitude. When you practice voluntary deprivation, you become more aware of the abundance in your life. Imagine going a week without hot showers, as some Stoics recommended. At first, the cold water might feel shocking, but as you adapt, you might find that you're not only capable of enduring it, but that you feel a newfound appreciation for the luxury of hot water when it returns. How do you decide what to give up? Start by identifying areas where you feel most reliant on external comforts. This could be a habit, like daily coffee, or an indulgence, like streaming your favorite shows every evening. Once you've chosen something, set a clear time frame for your deprivation. Long enough to challenge yourself, but not so long that it feels overwhelming. A week is often a good starting point. During the period of deprivation, pay attention to how you feel. Notice the initial discomfort, but also observe the moments when you realize you're perfectly capable of thriving without the thing you gave up. Reflect on what this experience teaches you about your relationship with the habit or comfort. Did you miss it as much as you expected? Did you find alternative ways to meet the need it fulfilled? Voluntary deprivation can also reveal how much of our consumption is habitual rather than necessary. For instance, someone who gives up their morning coffee for a week might discover that while the first few days are tough, they eventually feel just as alert and focused without it. This realization can lead to lasting changes in how they approach their habits, reducing unnecessary reliance on external stimulants. Another benefit of this practice is that it enhances your sense of agency. When you choose to give something up voluntarily, you're reminded that you have control over your actions and desires. This sense of empowerment can be incredibly motivating, especially when applied to overcoming vices. It shifts your mindset from one of deprivation to one of strength. You're not losing something. You're proving to yourself that you don't need it. For the Stoics, voluntary deprivation was not about living in constant discomfort, but about cultivating a mindset of independence and gratitude. By periodically stepping away from the things you take for granted, you develop a greater appreciation for them and a deeper understanding of your own resilience. This practice is particularly relevant in a world where abundance and instant gratification are often the norm. We are surrounded by conveniences that make it easy to indulge in our desires without pause. Voluntary deprivation offers a counterbalance, encouraging mindfulness and intentionality in how we engage with the world around us. Incorporating this practice into your life doesn't require dramatic changes. Start small, experiment with different forms of deprivation, and reflect on what you learn from each experience. Over time, you'll find that this simple yet powerful method not only helps you overcome vices, but also enriches your appreciation for life's simple pleasures. At the heart of the Stoic way of life is the practice of daily reflection. The Stoics believed that consistent self-examination was essential for personal growth and mastery over one's impulses. By reviewing your actions, thoughts, and decisions at the end of each day, you create an opportunity to learn from your experiences, strengthen your character, and align yourself more closely with your values. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most well-known Stoic philosophers, famously wrote in his Meditations, "The first rule is to maintain a serene spirit. The second is to look objectively and with clarity at everything that comes your way." This practice of calmly and objectively evaluating your day is a cornerstone of Stoic wisdom, allowing you to acknowledge both your progress and your challenges without judgment. Imagine sitting down at the end of the day and taking a moment to reflect. Perhaps you start by asking yourself a few simple questions. What went well today? Where did I struggle? Did I make decisions that aligned with my values? Or did I allow impulses to steer me off course? These questions provide a framework for understanding your actions and identifying areas for improvement. Daily reflection is particularly valuable when working to overcome vices. Let's say you're trying to break a habit of procrastination. During your evening reflection, you might review the moments when you avoided tasks and ask yourself why. Was it because the task felt overwhelming? Did you lack motivation or clarity about what to do next? By identifying these patterns, you can plan strategies to address them the following day, such as breaking tasks into smaller steps or setting specific time blocks for focused work. This practice also helps you celebrate small victories, which are crucial for building confidence and motivation. Suppose you successfully resisted a temptation, like avoiding unnecessary online shopping or choosing a healthier snack over junk food. Taking a moment to acknowledge and appreciate these successes reinforces the behaviors you want to cultivate, making it more likely that you'll repeat them. One of the most powerful aspects of daily reflection is that it shifts your mindset from one of self-criticism to one of learning. The Stoics understood that mistakes are inevitable, and that growth comes not from avoiding errors, but from learning how to respond to them. If you gave in to a vice during the day, your evening reflection is an opportunity to analyze the situation without judgment. What triggered the behavior? How did it make you feel? What could you do differently next time? This process transforms setbacks into valuable lessons, helping you grow stronger with each challenge. To make the most of daily reflection, it's helpful to create a dedicated ritual. This could be as simple as spending 5 minutes journaling before bed, or as structured as writing responses to specific prompts. For example, you might ask yourself, what were the highlights of my day? What challenges did I face and how did I respond? Were there moments when I acted against my better judgment? If so, why? What am I grateful for today? These prompts encourage you to look at your day holistically, recognizing both your strengths and areas for improvement. Over time, this practice becomes a habit that fosters self-awareness and intentionality in your actions. Another benefit of daily reflection is that it helps you maintain perspective. When you're in the midst of a challenging day, it can be easy to feel overwhelmed or discouraged. But by taking a step back in the evening, you gain a clearer view of the bigger picture. You might realize that a mistake or setback that felt significant in the moment was actually just a small bump in the road. This perspective helps you move forward with renewed focus and determination. Let's consider an example. Imagine you're working on reducing the time you spend on your phone. During your reflection, you might notice that you spent more time scrolling through social media than you intended. Instead of criticizing yourself, you could explore the reasons behind this behavior. Were you bored? Procrastinating on a task? Seeking connection or distraction? Once you identify the underlying cause, you can brainstorm strategies to address it the next day, such as setting time limits on apps, scheduling regular breaks for social interaction, or creating a list of alternative activities. The Stoics also used reflection to reconnect with their values. By reviewing their actions at the end of each day, they ensured that their choices aligned with the principles they held dear. You can do the same by asking yourself, did my actions today reflect the kind of person I want to be? This question encourages you to live with greater integrity, making decisions that align with your long-term goals rather than succumbing to fleeting impulses. Over time, the practice of daily reflection cultivates a sense of accountability, not to others, but to yourself. It reminds you that you have the power to shape your life through your choices, and that each day is an opportunity to grow closer to the person you aspire to be. This sense of accountability is empowering, helping you stay focused on your goals, even when the path feels difficult. Daily reflection also enhances your emotional resilience. By regularly examining your thoughts and behaviors, you become more attuned to your triggers and patterns, making it easier to anticipate and navigate challenges. For example, if you notice that you're more likely to indulge in vices when you're tired or stressed, you can take proactive steps to manage these states, such as prioritizing rest or practicing relaxation techniques. As Marcus Aurelius suggested, this practice is not about perfection, but about progress. Each day, no matter how small the steps, offers an opportunity to move forward. By committing to daily reflection, you create a rhythm of learning and growth that transforms your relationship with your habits and your sense of self. Incorporating this practice into your routine doesn't have to be complicated. It's about carving out a few moments each evening to pause, reflect, and plan for tomorrow. The insights you gain through this process are invaluable, helping you navigate life's challenges with greater clarity, intention, and confidence. One of the most powerful lessons in Stoicism is learning to distinguish between what is within your control and what is not. This concept forms the foundation for much of Stoic practice and philosophy. When it comes to managing vices, this distinction is especially significant because many of our struggles arise from trying to control the uncontrollable. Acceptance of this reality not only reduces frustration, but also redirects your energy toward the things you can change. Epictetus put it simply, "Some things depend on us, and others do not." This principle encourages you to focus your efforts on your actions, thoughts, and responses, areas where you have influence, while letting go of the things that lie outside your control, such as the opinions of others, external events, or outcomes that are shaped by forces beyond your reach. Imagine someone who frequently seeks validation from others, constantly worrying about how they are perceived. This habit, while understandable, is rooted in an attempt to control something that cannot be controlled, other people's opinions. By accepting that you cannot dictate how others think or feel, you free yourself from the endless cycle of striving for approval. Instead, you can focus on living authentically, guided by your own values rather than external validation. This principle applies to many other vices as well. Consider someone who struggles with overeating when they feel stressed about situations they cannot change, such as work-related conflicts or global events. The stress triggers the behavior, and the behavior becomes a way to avoid confronting the discomfort of the uncontrollable. By shifting their focus, they can learn to accept the reality of the situation and channel their energy into actions they can influence, such as managing their responses or improving their coping strategies. How can you practice this principle in daily life? Start by pausing whenever you feel frustration, worry, or the pull of a vice. Ask yourself, is this something I can control? If the answer is no, remind yourself that resisting reality only creates unnecessary suffering. Instead, redirect your energy toward what you can influence, your thoughts, your choices, and your actions in the present moment. Let's take an example. Suppose you're trying to quit smoking, and you encounter a stressful situation that triggers the urge to smoke. While you cannot change the external stressor, you can control how you respond to it. Instead of reaching for a cigarette, you might choose to practice deep breathing, take a short walk, or call a supportive friend. By focusing on your response rather than the stressor itself, you regain a sense of agency and move closer to your goal. Accepting what you cannot control also reduces the emotional weight of setbacks. When working to overcome a vice, it's natural to experience moments of struggle or relapse. If you blame yourself for these moments or dwell on what you should have done differently, you risk falling into a cycle of guilt and self-criticism. Instead, the Stoics advise adopting a mindset of acceptance. Acknowledge the setback, reflect on what you can learn from it, and then move forward with renewed effort. This approach can be especially liberating in social situations. Imagine you're someone who feels compelled to drink alcohol at gatherings because of peer pressure. Accepting that you cannot control how others might react to your decision to abstain frees you to focus on what matters most, your health and well-being. By letting go of the fear of judgment, you create space to act in alignment with your values. Another benefit of this principle is that it helps you build resilience. Life is unpredictable, and challenges are inevitable. By accepting this reality, you become less reactive to unexpected events. For example, if you're trying to stick to a healthy eating plan and find yourself at an event where your preferred options aren't available, instead of feeling frustrated or derailed, you can calmly adapt. This flexibility allows you to stay focused on your goals without being thrown off course by circumstances beyond your control. Practicing acceptance doesn't mean giving up or becoming passive. On the contrary, it's about recognizing where your efforts will be most effective. Instead of wasting energy on the uncontrollable, you direct it toward meaningful action. This mindset shift is empowering because it allows you to focus fully on what you can do to improve your situation. To deepen your practice of this principle, consider keeping a journal where you reflect on the events of your day. Identify moments when you felt frustrated or tempted by a vice, and ask yourself whether these situations involve factors beyond your control. If so, how might you approach them differently next time? This reflection helps reinforce the habit of focusing on what matters most, your actions and responses. Let's revisit the earlier example of seeking validation. Imagine writing in your journal about a day when you felt particularly anxious about how others perceived you. As you reflect, you might recognize that you spent hours replaying a conversation in your head, wondering if you said the right thing. By acknowledging that you cannot control how others interpret your words, you can shift your focus to what you can control, speaking with kindness and integrity in the future. The Stoics also teach that accepting what you cannot control brings peace of mind. When you stop resisting reality, you free yourself from the mental and emotional strain of trying to change the unchangeable. This peace doesn't come from external circumstances. It comes from within, from knowing that you are doing your best with what is within your power. Epictetus's reminder about control encourages us to let go of unnecessary burdens. Whether it's the outcome of a decision, the reactions of others, or the challenges of the external world, these are not things we can dictate. What we can control is how we navigate them, with courage, wisdom, and grace. By practicing this principle, you'll find that vices lose much of their power over you. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you free yourself from the frustration and anxiety that often drive these behaviors. Instead, you gain a sense of calm, focus, and clarity, allowing you to live in alignment with your values. The final Stoic method for managing vices and transforming your relationship with temptation is to reflect on impermanence. This practice is a reminder of one of life's most fundamental truths. Everything is temporary. Circumstances, emotions, desires, and even challenges all come and go. By recognizing the fleeting nature of things, you can gain the perspective needed to overcome impulses and live with greater purpose. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "Observe how everything changes and how nothing lasts forever." This simple yet profound observation serves as a guide for navigating both the highs and lows of life. When applied to the struggle with vices, the awareness of impermanence helps you detach from the intensity of your urges, knowing that they too will pass. Imagine you're facing a moment of temptation, a craving for a cigarette, an urge to lash out in anger, or a pull toward procrastination. In the heat of the moment, these feelings often seem overwhelming, as though they'll only subside if you give in. But when you pause and reflect on the impermanence of these urges, something shifts. You realize that the craving is not as permanent as it feels. Like a wave, it rises, peaks, and eventually fades away. To practice this, try observing your emotions and impulses as if they were external events. Let's say you're tempted to binge on junk food after a long day. Instead of acting on the impulse immediately, pause and notice it. Ask yourself, how does this craving feel? Is it a sharp pull, a dull ache, or something else? As you observe it, remind yourself that it won't last forever. Often, the simple act of waiting, allowing the wave of desire to crest and fall, diminishes its power over you. The awareness of impermanence can also help you navigate regret or guilt, emotions that are often tied to vices. Suppose you gave in to an impulse and made a choice you now regret. Reflecting on impermanence reminds you that your feelings of guilt, while valid, are also temporary. They don't define you or your ability to move forward. Instead of dwelling on the mistake, use it as an opportunity to learn and grow. This principle extends beyond managing impulses. It's a lens through which you can view all of life. The Stoics believed that reflecting on impermanence enhances your appreciation for the present moment. When you remember that nothing lasts forever, you're more likely to cherish what you have and make the most of your time. Consider the example of someone who struggles with procrastination. By reflecting on impermanence, they might realize that the time they're wasting is a resource they can never get back. This perspective can serve as a powerful motivator to take action, not out of fear, but out of a desire to use their time meaningfully. Another way to integrate this practice is to reflect on the impermanence of your challenges. Let's say you're facing a particularly difficult period in your life, perhaps financial stress, a health setback, or a strained relationship. In the midst of these struggles, it can be easy to feel like things will never improve. But reflecting on impermanence reminds you that just as good times don't last forever, neither do tough times. This understanding provides a sense of hope and resilience, allowing you to endure challenges with greater strength. One practical tool for remembering impermanence is visualization. Picture your current struggle as a storm passing through the sky. The clouds may be dark and heavy, but they are not permanent. Eventually, they will clear, revealing a brighter sky. This visualization can be especially helpful when dealing with intense emotions or cravings, as it reinforces the idea that they are temporary and manageable. The Stoics also encouraged reflecting on mortality as a way to stay grounded in the present. This practice, known as memento mori, remember you must die, isn't meant to be morbid, but to serve as a reminder of life's preciousness. When you reflect on the finite nature of life, it becomes easier to let go of trivial concerns and focus on what truly matters. For instance, if you're tempted to waste time on unproductive activities, reflecting on the limited nature of your days might motivate you to spend that time more wisely. This practice isn't about ignoring or suppressing your feelings, but about changing how you relate to them. When you understand that every emotion, desire, and circumstance is part of a larger cycle of change, you become less reactive and more intentional in your actions. You learn to respond to life's challenges with patience and perspective, knowing that no difficulty lasts forever. The awareness of impermanence also fosters gratitude. When you remember that everything you cherish is temporary, you're more likely to appreciate it fully. Whether it's the company of loved ones, the beauty of a sunset, or even the small pleasures of daily life, reflecting on their fleeting nature enhances your ability to savor them in the moment. Let's return to the example of managing cravings. Imagine you're trying to cut back on an unhealthy habit like excessive drinking. Reflecting on impermanence might help you appreciate the benefits of moderation, clearer mornings, improved health, and better relationships. These positive outcomes, while not permanent either, are worth striving for because they enhance the quality of your life here and now. To incorporate this practice into your routine, consider setting aside time each evening to reflect on the impermanence of your day. Ask yourself, what challenges did I face and how did I respond? What moments of joy or connection did I experience and how can I carry their lessons forward? This reflection not only deepens your awareness, but also helps you align your actions with your values. As Marcus Aurelius observed, observe how everything changes and how nothing lasts forever. By embracing this truth, you gain the clarity and strength to navigate life's ups and downs with grace. Whether you're working to overcome vices or simply striving to live more intentionally, the practice of remembering impermanence offers a powerful foundation for growth.